Take everything that is already great with the Lumix S5 II, black out the body, add even more features to it, make it no more expensive than it needs to be, and then add an X to the name. Yep, this is the Lumix S5iix, and this might just be the only X I'm happy to have back. A few disclaimers: I've only had the S5iix for no more than 4 days at the time of this recording, and I've been shooting everything lens-wise with the standard 20 to 60mm variable aperture kit lens, so this won't be a full review, but more of a very early impressions and hands-on. And look, I have to say this does feel like having my X back, because as someone who started on Lumix Micro Four Thirds cameras for video with the G7, G85, GH5, and my favorite being the GH5S, the Lumix S5iix feels like a return to form and brings upgrades that I've been waiting for Panasonic to do on their mirrorless cameras, especially from what is already awesome on the S5 II, finally having face detection, autofocus. Now, let's start from the outside and work our way in with the body design and the overall ergonomics. If you had the pleasure of shooting with the S5 or the S5 II, then you'll feel right at home when it comes to the feel of the S5iix when using it. As someone who owns two A7IV bodies, which most would say is the more expensive camera that matches to the S5 II and the S5iix, the S5iix does feel really nice to hold and very ergonomic. When holding it, it feels more natural and digs less into my hand and sits naturally. Overall, the body feels well put together, and this is Lumix in their element for body and design. Now, a few takeaways from the design of the S5iix that I actually really appreciate. The all blackout design is definitely at the top, and Lumix gets ratings for being one of the first to lean into an all black aesthetic. Remembering how the active cooling design was on the S1H, this newly designed active cooling system with the internal fan around the EVF housing, which you can control in software, is really impressive because it adds pretty much no size increase compared to the original S5. It's great to also actually see a full-size HDMI port, which allows you to shoot externally, not just in ProRes RAW to an Atmos recorder, but also Blackmagic RAW externally to a Blackmagic Video Assist recorder. Like the S5 II, you have the upgraded USB-C port with power delivery charging, but this time around the S5iix allows you to record to an external SSD, which opens up even more recording options as you can record ProRes, which we'll get into more later. Without going into too much detail of the body and design, if you've seen the countless videos on the S5 II or have had hands-on with it, the S5iix feels very much the same, from the high resolution touchscreen, which is fully articulating, and the improved camera strap holders, to the repositioned EVF sensor. This is not much of a deal breaker, but oddly enough, the only part I struggled with the body design was the position of the HDMI port. Look, as much as I'm happy to see a full-size HDMI port compared to the previous S5, I do wish it was in a better position like my A7IV, as when plugged in, the flip screen is limited in rotation and the dial for the shutter speed is easy to knock and change by accident, so a lock for it would have been nice. Apart from that, I really like the design. Where do I even begin when it comes to the recording options on the S5iix, because it's pretty much building on the S5 II, which was already stacked. Yes, you still have the ability to shoot full 6K up to 30 frames per second in 420 10-bit color in the MOV quality, in the open gate 3:2 ratio mode, and 17:9 and 16:9. You've got an array of different 4K shooting modes, from DCI 4K 17:9 up to 30 frames per second with no crop, 4K UHD 16:9 up to 30 frames per second with no crop, and full high definition 120 frames per second with no crop as well, all with the option of full 422 color and using long GOP and all-eye compression methods. All this is done internally to both UHS 2 V90 SD card slots, even with internal ProRes HQ up to full high definition 60 frames per second, which is insane. Now, this is where it gets really good. If you choose to use an external SSD to record via the USB-C port and you enable it in the settings, you can shoot up to full frame 5.8K 30 frames per second ProRes HQ with a crazy data rate of 1.9 gigabits per second. This level of flexibility in video codec option is crazy, and in some cases can be a little overwhelming, but in a good way. You can actually filter the recording modes and options you want using the display filtering feature, so that does make life easier, and it looks like Lumix do have you covered here. Now, for all the good I have to say about the recording modes, there are a few things to consider. The 4K recording modes above 30 frames per second, like 48 and 60 frames, do add an additional 1.5x mandatory APS-C crop, which you have no control over. And although the autofocus works pretty well in all the recording modes, I believe when you're actually shooting in full high definition, full frame, 180 frames per second, you do lose the autofocus function. I personally use an Atmos Ninja 5 for external monitoring and recording, and although the S5iix has got the ability to shoot ProRes RAW externally to the Ninja 5, it shows it in the camera options, but I've not actually been able to get it to work here, as there might be a firmware update needed to unlock that feature on the S5iix. More details once I actually have them for you. As I've only been using a standard kit lens and getting used to the functionality of the camera, I definitely need more time to test the overall image quality, but in a short space of time with it, the overall image quality of the S5iix has been really impressive. My favorite feature has got to be the real-time LUT option when picking your photo style. This gives you the ability to shoot vlog and apply the official 709 color space conversion LUT baked into the footage. As someone that hates that part of the editing workflow, this feature alone will make me shoot log all the time. Finally, no more contrast detection focus. Just like the upgrade we saw to the S5 II from the S5, the S5iix is using a hybrid face detection autofocus system. Now out of the box, it works great and does give you human and eye detection as options to use. You can adjust the AF speed and the AF sensitivity to fine tune it to your shooting style, but overall, Panasonic looks to have finally added a very competent AF system, and this is all I've been asking for to complete the quest of finding the perfect camera. Well, the perfect camera doesn't really exist, it's impossible, but you know what I mean. The AF performance basically deserves its own detailed breakdown, and I'm still getting used to all the options for how the AF behaves, but with the time I spent with it so far, it's given me a lot of confidence I've never had when using a Lumix camera in regards to continuous autofocus, especially in video. Fingers crossed it stays that way for me, but for now, this is a massive turning point for Panasonic. Now, if you were holding on to your GH5 for dear life because of that class-leading level of stabilization, you've got the Micro Four Thirds sensor and the optimization over the years that Panasonic have put into the image stabilization, then trust me when I say that it's finally time to look the way of full frame with the S5iix, while keeping a fairly compact camera body. Again, more testing and time is needed to see the limitations and also just how well the overall stabilization works day to day. But I'm almost confident in saying, for all that is amazing with the S5 II, the S5iix is bringing the same benefits, if not potentially better. Fingers crossed. Honorable mentions to wrap up this initial impressions and hands-on video of the S5iix are the software features that really cater to professionals, especially on the video side. First one, without a doubt, has got to be shutter angle. I cannot tell you how good it is to have the option to use shutter angle instead of shutter speed when it comes to video, especially switching between different frame rates. This alone, in addition to having a proper phase detection autofocus system, is enough to get my X back. I mean the S5iix, not my actual X. Having the option to switch to a true 24 frames a second shooting mode, which is something that is limited to proper video cinema cameras, and it feels like a very nice cherry on top. And again, mentioning it again, the real-time LUT feature is legit the cheat code I've been waiting for to shoot log all the time. Adding proper assist tools like waveforms, 2 sets of zebras, and being able to adjust the mic input to a line input for external recorders like my Zoom H4n, to say the Lumix S5iix at this price of £2,199 in the UK compared to the £2,399 on the A7IV, I may need more time for testing, but I will say this does feel like the rare occasion where having my X back is looking good.